Hello, good afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day. We have a Happy Valentine's special. It's a very, very special program. My name is Dmitry Sitkovetsky, and this is Q&A with Dima, Transformation, the Art of Reinvention in the time of the pandemic. And I do have very, very special guests today, my two favorite musicians in the NES, also the longest serving. They were there at the very beginning of the New European Strings Orchestra all the way back in 1990. And of course, it's Yoko Fujita, who is speaking to us from Zurich today in Switzerland, and Kati Raitinen, who is speaking from Stockholm. So welcome, Yoko and Kati. Wonderful to have you here.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I also have beautiful, beautiful flowers here to both of you and to all our friends. As Kati mentioned, that Valentine's Day in Finland means something else. Could you explain?
Yeah, it's called Friends. It's Friends Day. It's not the Lovers' Day, but a day with friends or for friends.
Wonderful. We certainly now entering the age where the friends and love for friends become more important than just one person as a love. I think and since NES is such a really labor of love for me and for most people there, so I feel that it's very appropriate for NES. So let me ask you the first question. You probably never spend as much time at home as in 2020. What new have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? What has been a positive lesson from being at home? Kati, you start.
Evenings at home. Oh, beautiful, Yoko. I mean, when you work at an opera house and you have a busy schedule otherwise too, then the evenings at home, they just don't happen very often. So this year has been actually fantastic. It's amazing. Do people live like this? They really meet each other every evening. No, it's been, I've appreciated that, to get to learn to know my family a little bit. And then there's been another find for me. I've always been a bit scared of teaching because of the responsibility for the whole person, for the life, not only the musical life, but you can ruin so much if you're stupid, and even if you're not, just by mistake. But this year, I finally did it. I started to meet some pupils at the Royal College here, and it's been great. It's been fantastic. It's really an adventure, and also it's brought me back to my teachers, and I'm feeling so grateful for everything they have done for me, and what I can just give on to other people. It's been really wonderful, and but that's for about the good sides of the pandemic. We don't have to go into the other sides now.
The other sides are plenty.
Yes.
What about you, Yoko? What has it been for you, being at home so long?
You know, that's like I had this accident in 2002. It's already almost 20 years ago with my ear. And since then, sort of I started to live more introverted life. That means like I used to work 50% in symphony orchestra, 50% freelance. And then this orchestra part finished, and then I had to, find myself how to daily contact with musicians and colleagues. And so that matter, so my life hasn't changed that much. Like Kati enjoying the family life or whatever. And these things, but even more time, and there's no excuse to face to the problem, whatever daily life. That's no no excuse for not having time and no energy to face your problems. And so for that, I really redigesting my active years and all the repertoire or this discipline, physical and mental, that I really learned very much in this 1 year, even more.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you both we have to, by having so much time and for reflection and for recollection, it would be interesting to go back to your beginnings, or both of you. And for instance, for Yoko, somebody asked specifically, how did the specific training you received at Curtis contribute to your enjoyment of performing with NES? It's I would go back even further, let's say from the beginning, because there's an interesting fact in your biography that at the very beginning you actually studied with Mr. Suzuki himself. And if you don't mind just going back to that part, then maybe touching a little bit on Curtis, and then we'll ask Kati of her beginnings. Yeah. So a little bit about Suzuki.
Yes. My father was, I come from a non-musicians family. And then because of my father's work, we moved to the place where Mr. Suzuki was living and teaching. And at that time I was about 3.5. My brother was playing violin, and I didn't go to the kindergarten. So I got this instrument and started to play with instrument a little bit. And then my mother, who was born 1925, I recognize that the year of your father's birth year. And then, and then, she was sort of growing up in this wartime. And then they had not nice youth. And also women is only to be served as a wife, not a personality.
Yeah.
So, and when she had, and when she had this so-called motto from Suzuki method, I will read it. Musical ability is not an inborn talent, but an ability which can be developed. Any child who is properly trained can develop musical ability just as all children develop the ability to speak their mother tongue. The potential of every child is unlimited. And I think this motto, I think it talked to her very much. So she said, okay, well, there's a possibility to be near to start, send her there. But I really don't remember him as a person, not much. When I think about now, he was that time on the beginning of 60, and that's much younger than us, but he was very fine person, and then listened and he praised what you do. Yes, and that was
a lot of compliments, compliments for every effort, not for the result, but for the effort.
Exactly,
as well.
and also all the mothers or father who accompany their children, they had to also hold the violin, and that they had to learn also and play. It's sort of, when I imagine now, it must be horrible, but something very positive about it. And then that was really wonderful, I have to say. And then but only what I feel still I was pity was people in Japan, like who went to Toho or Gedai. Everybody said how nice you didn't get involved with this school system or that. But till I went to Curtis, I never had any institutional training, musical training, and then that was something very.
After Suzuki, you continued just privately? You went to normal schools and had your music lessons?
Exactly. Uh-huh. And then when I was like 10, we moved back to Osaka, and then our Suzuki teacher was not so good for me, and so I changed to the other professor. But my parents anyhow never want me to be a professional musician. So they said, okay, you go to the normal school and then do the normal education. And when you finish your maturity with 18, still you wanted to do it, then go for it. But till then, you have to stay home and get the normal thing.
And go to normal school. But you kept on practicing the violin.
Yes, but I had no chance of playing chamber music, neither orchestra, because my professor in that time in Osaka, she was against it. She said, no, you don't have to do that. You have to just practice your violin, and try to get over with this professor. I had to go to abroad, not to get fight or this she couldn't let me go anywhere, so I had to go to abroad. That wasn't really.
So you came to Curtis when you were already out of the school at 18? You moved to the States?
I was 90 because I was after school. I was first in Paris and in Nice in the Kogan master course. And then he said he can't take me to the Moscow, so I should go to Prague, and that was a time right after from Prague spring. And my parents was very worried, and so I got chance to play for Grumio, who was my idol all time that time, and then I went to him in Brussels, and but he was not teaching in the school. So afterwards, I really wanted to go to the music school, and then then right after that, I got chance that Jamie Laredo invited me to play for him. So I went to play for him, and then I went to.
But you met him in Europe, Jamie?
No, I flew into. No, he was. I went from Brussels to New York to play for him, and then that time, that was quite an adventurous trip. But that was I was lucky to be able to play for him, and he accepted me, and then I started in Curtis in 1975. So. Yeah,
75. That's fantastic. So you were about the same age, 19, when you came to Curtis. When I met Kati, and I met Kati when she was NES. So I know Kati from that age. But tell us, Kati, what you did before that. How did you start, and who were your teachers before we met?
I'm also from a non-musical family, so to say, and I played the piano first, and I hated it. And then I got to change for cello, start the cello when I was 9, and there was a Hungarian two brothers in Helsinki, in eastern Helsinki where I was living. They had a youth orchestra, and they were teaching their own version of the Kodai method. So actually it's a little bit similar to the Suzuki in the thought, I think, that there should be a chance for everybody to learn music. That the most important person in the town is not the opera boss, but the teacher for the young children. That this person should be paid best.
paid the best, because these are the most important people in the business. The ones, your first teachers, because they need you for life, and then you drop it or become physically crippled because you were taught the wrong way to play, or they give you the way to never stop learning and never stop developing. Yeah, I would say absolutely. It's like children's doctors. I mean, the ones that really take care of you while you're the most vulnerable. in a way. You know, it's the same. It's the same thing. And then, so who were your first teachers? You went to Sibelius Academy or not?
Yeah, I did. I went to the youth department there. So I was 1 year only in this music school in the Eastern Helsinki. And then I went to the youth department, which is a fantastic thing because from the whole country, children came there for Saturdays. So they could take a night train from Ivalo, I mean, from Rovaniemi, from wherever, and then they could have their lessons on Saturday with teachers they could otherwise not have met. And it still exists, and I hope really that Finland will keep this tradition. It's a fantastic possibility. And I had many, many good teachers. And the funny thing is that when I think of when we met, when I was 19, then I was already studying in the real Sibelius Academy. But that time, I mean, of course, you meet people, but there was no Spotify, there was no YouTube. So to get really to close contact with people who play differently, who have not studied in Eastern Helsinki.
Exactly.
I mean, this impact for me. I think I was 19 when I auditioned for you, but I think I actually was already 20 when we met then with the orchestra.
Or with the orchestra, by May you might have 90.
Exactly, because my birthday is April, so I think I was already as old.
But I remember very well, you came to Turku. I was playing with Bezrodny, I think Shostakovich, maybe, or Prokofiev concerto, and you came and you auditioned for me in, I think Rosie arranged it, Rosie Dubsund, and you played for me in the backstage somewhere, and I said, well, absolutely, please come. And this was the time when I might have seen also Markku Jokinen, but you were the first one, and it's so remarkable that you've been such a lucky draw for me, because I think I will not be wrong that if I say that you've developed in the biggest way from where I found you in December 89 to what you became in the course that at first I saw you a lot because we did a lot of festivals, a lot of tours, but then even if I didn't see you with NES, I would come to Storm and this and that, and you just kept growing and growing and developing, and that constant, it was just, for me, that's been one of the most satisfying, if one could call it a project. Kati Raitinen project is maybe the most satisfying because of, Boris Garlitsky, of course, I know since we were both, teenagers, and he was already a great, he became maybe better and more experienced concertmaster and this and that. But your development, Yoko was already, completely master violinist, but you were still sort of in the process of growing, and just to observe that and to become, and this is, I think, the feeling many of us, Yoko, correct me if I'm wrong, because that Kati's development has been absolutely sensational.
It was such a pleasure to meet her each festival, each tour that she's, that's really something.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And became a fantastic cellist. And now, when I experienced her also when we went to Japan together, play some chamber music, she gave lessons and how she teaches and become a mother, everything. It's
the whole package. Now, while she's blushing, but it's a good day for Valentine's. Yoko, tell me about when we met. Yeah, exactly. When we were both studying at with the great Galamian. You were this. Tell me about the Curtis, because the actual question was about how the specific training you received at Curtis contribute to your enjoyment of performing with NES. She's writing, in my memory, that training was intense and also deeply committed to the spirit of music like NES. Tell us a few things about the Curtis years, yeah, which came when you were the same age as when we met Kati at
I
19.
remember, like when I came to Curtis, I was 19, one of the already old one, and then like Cecil or Sarah Sant'Ambrosia, and then Nadia, and all this,
Salernos, yeah,
and the teenies, and then I'm already 19, turning 20, and I came to Curtis. I know
really old.
nothing about, and then it was really I had to start with from Kreutzel once more, and then second year, third year, then I'm allowed to play chamber music, and then I could Misha Schneider, Felix Galmi, Isidor Kohl. I mean, that was fantastic teachers around. And then what I can compare with Ness is there's no rivalry or competitor, you know, just you have such a respect to your colleague, and then you get such an influence, you just sucked in you really like a sponge. It's nothing, you can really
Exactly.
take it and then work together, and also learning quite short period of time, very intensive, very concentrated, and you have to bring to the performance, which also Curtis, we had
Yeah.
to seniors, you learned pieces, and then you are able to perform in the hall, in the house. And then this is
Yeah.
also with Ness, there are some, also many people came and go on too also, but certain people stays in the group, and then such a productive, sometimes it's such a difficult because
Atmosphere, yeah.
but never unpleasant, you know, it's just with all the time you treat it with respect, and that is something very 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 I miss this working process with Ness.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah. But I think it's also from what I remember, because we had not only Galamin among the teachers in common, we also had Gallagher, Felix Gallagher. He was a very very special musician, and you became very good friends with him because you saw Felix much later, already in Europe, and he would come and you would keep in touch with him and his wife. And Felix, I remember when I played trumpet music, and he had a Strad at that time, and I was so excited because I said, Mr. Gallagher, can I try your Strad? And so he gave me his Strad. It was not the easiest actually violin to play, but somehow I managed. I said, oh, that's so exciting. He said, don't worry. He said, don't worry. Soon you'll have your own. At that time, we were like, yeah, you'll be on Mount Everest. Yeah, one of these days, but soon. But it didn't take that long for me to have a Strad. He was sort of, prophetic in some ways, but there was wonderful also personalities. Everybody had, Galamin had a fatherly quality in him, and I think Felix also was kind of a father figure to you in many ways. They were not just teachers in chamber music or violin. They were much more of mentor kind of role models in many ways. And of course Felix, if Galamin brought Russian and French tradition, then Felix brought tradition directly from Schoenberg. He actually played Schoenberg pieces with Schoenberg in attendance. I mean, he was direct linked to New Viennese School. I mean, and all that great culture. So I think we were lucky that way. In the meantime, while we're talking, I just want to you be aware that we have a text going on between Boris Galitsky. Girls, we miss you. And he signs Paris Prisoners, of course. And then, yeah, oh, that's, Susan Roberts says, me too. You are the best of what music and music making is about. That's a big compliment. Wonderful. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. Now, let me just jump to, this interesting question, for instance, for Kati, because you started at 19 with Aeneas, which we already said, as the youngest player, and progressed enormously as a solo cello at the Royal Opera in Stockholm. You have a string trio of great quality, which I played together. We did Shostakovich Quartet, Opus 73, which is very dear for the Aeneas as well because of the transcription. Contemporary music, you do a lot, and now teaching. What it doesn't say here, you also have two wonderful boys, one of whom is a movie star. So now you're a mom of a movie star. That's incredible. The question is, what is your drive and motivation? Who were your mentors and role models? Because we talked about a little bit of role models for Yoko and me too. Who were your mentors and role models? And then also mention your 3-4 favorite operas. So two things. What drives you? Who were your sort of mentors and role models? And then maybe operas.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's love of music which is driving me, but of course it's other things too. And there's some kind of curiosity which I've not lost yet, which is I'm also very happy for. And also, it's very important for me to keep the possibility of doing many different things. So not only sitting in the orchestra or not only this or only that, but really mix this musicians, all the possibilities that there are. And that has always been really important, even when it's terribly busy and so that's a really nice thing. And mentors, well, I think you too, you're on the top. But it's also so much not only learning from a teacher, don't you think? It's how you see other people are handling their lives. And it's not maybe musicians at all. It can be your friends. I mean, I have to say that my good dear friend Susanna Melki, whom I've been really good friends since we were 7, and she's, of course, she has been a great influence in many ways. And then there are these occasions when the coincidence plays in, that I played a master course in Helsinki a long time ago. I was like around 20, and there was a cellist from the Helsinki Philharmonic who was listening to the master course. Her name is Riitta Lampela, and she came to me after the course and she said, "You have to go abroad. You can't stay in Finland. You have to get away from here. You have to go somewhere else to study." And I was like, "Why? I like it here. I don't want to go anywhere." But I think she opened the thought, and I'm very grateful for that. Isn't that also one of the things in Ness, that nobody in Ness is living in the country where they were born?
Just about. We're the most displaced people, group of displaced people. I mean, we have French musicians, people living in France, but they're not French. Boris, Mimi, Boris Baras. No, we have a bunch of Dutch citizens. Maybe one now we have who is actually Dutch. We had people living in London. They're not. And look, I'm talking now to Yoko, who is from Japan, but she lives in Switzerland. And I'm talking to Kati, who is Finnish, but you've lived most of your life in Stockholm. We are and of course, I am a typical British, musician anyway, if you believe that. So anyway, but I think that just also shows that music really knows no borders, and we go where we feel at home because of our family situation, and where we could express ourselves, who knows, I lived in Germany. That's a great place for musicians. And now my daughter, if it were not for pandemic, she would have spent the whole year in Germany, in Düsseldorf and, Dresden. Susan, if I didn't, make her come to London, she'd now maybe would be coming to the end of her career, only now. So, because it's the retirement age for this. In the meantime, while we're talking about it, Boris is asking, Kati, are you still running?
Yes.
Because he's a big runner.
There's too much
You're
snow
still up.
and ice now, but so I'm skiing at the moment, cross country. But I'm running. When the snow and ice is gone, then I will run. Come to
Yeah, you will
Stockholm
run
with
again.
me.
Because Boris is a complete runner fanatic. But one thing that Kat does that neither Boris nor I, most of NAS, could only just roll their eyes. You went to sauna and dipped into a ice cold water in the sea,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes.
just on Friday. That for me is unbelievable.
No, just please give it a go. Just try. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. What could go wrong? Just an instant heart attack. Other than that, if you don't get it, that's fine. You'll live a long time. If you
It's the
don't get
best
it,
way to go.
Of course. Oh yeah, it's a great way to go. Much better than from COVID. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yoko, tell me now. You've experienced, of course, three different way of, three different very important three musical cultures. You come from Japan. For me, that's one of the best places to come. And you've been there on a number of my tours. We coincided, or you were there on a family visit. I love going to Japan. I've been there 15 times. Of course, the States that we have in common, and Europe. Where do you feel you belong musically, or what influences, what great qualities that you've brought from different cultures? Because there are three different worlds. Now, of course, they're very interchanging, and you could find a lot of Japanese musicians in European orchestras and American and so forth. But how would you describe what was really good and what you don't miss? Those three.
Well, Japan, it's my country, but still I have often problems dealing to be an individual over there. You have to fit into very much as a woman too. And then it's not easy for me. It's not easy. And then USA was a great place for me to study, but obviously I spent about 7 months in Europe before I moved to America. I get this air and culture, and I feel very comfortable with it. And then way of life in America was, I was only 5 years there, only 5 years of my life, but this influence was just incredible. And also this opportunity, they're actually so generous to give the chance to some they thought sort of talented musician. Let's give a chance to study here, free. Curtis is we get full scholarship, and then it's this American generosity. It's I never felt over there I'm a foreigner. When I moved to Bamberg first time, I recognized I don't actually belong here. That was the first time I really recognized I am a foreign
French,
stranger.
that I am a foreigner. You felt like a
And
foreigner.
then, oh, totally, totally. I was a symphonikerin who plays in the Bamberger Symphoniker, but I was not Yoko, whether I mean, it's just a stranger. And then, but I guess I was so, in many terms, naive, and I didn't know anything about. So just it's time for me to see what am I now, and then all this generous culture and the people who I met, they were so giving me so much chance to accept how I was. I mean, when I think about when I was young, quite ignorant, you know, you had too little understanding with, and I was taking as a ground just, yeah, but now I feel this, I feel in Europe middle, yes, like when I went to first time to Finland to start this New York European, that kind of
But
conference,
yeah,
and in Finland,
May 90.
yeah,
May 90. Mhm.
that was something open up another part of Europe, but I feel that I can speak my language, so to call musical language, naturally in Europe the most. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in America, all the people who influenced me, they came from Europe.
Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Galaman and Galimer and many others, and the Schneiders, and you know, the whole Marlborough crew, and even the ones that were not there, maybe that were born there, like somebody like Gary Grafman, for instance, who was a president actually of Curtis for a number of years. He was the first generation of American born, but he told me at the time, you know, I did a program with him for the Russian television. He told me that he was born in 24 in America, and 4 years later, around that time, Curtis finally was formed. And you know how, because there was so many Russian teachers there, you know, Vengerova, Isabel Vengerova, and of course Zimbalist, and Josef Hoffman, and all these people. So they used to call it Conservatory in Exile. That was Curtis. Because, and there was so much Russian spoken there because of this. And he used to call his teacher, who was Isabel Vengerova, Tete Belichka Vengerova, Tete, because they knew each other, you know, and because his father was the student of Auer, and an older friend and colleague of Heifetz. I mean, it's unbelievable how all of that, you know, just, and of course, Galaman, you know, that apartment on the 10th floor, 73rd and Amsterdam Avenue, that apartment, the same floor lived the Cherepnins. We did Ivan Cherepnin music, if you remember, I think the very first year in 1990, that was from the same floor in the same apartment. Just underneath Galaman, in 9B, where I often stay now at Eric Rame, lived Ksenia Ziloti's daughter. And that's where Rachmaninoff used to come because he was her uncle. You know, they married two sisters, Stravinsky, and all these people. I mean, that was the New York Russian emigre community. Not bad. And Gabrilovich, the Osip Gabrilovich, great cellist, he lived in the same building. So it's just, you know, it's so close to this whole music history, but it was mostly, you're right, it was mostly European. It was mostly European. Now, coming back to some of the questions. Now, a little bit of how, because now, even though you're foreigners, but you've now lived in Sweden, for instance, Kati, how, and we keep reading about Sweden handling the pandemic in a different way. What is it like? Tell us, enlighten us, because, you know, Switzerland, that's another story, and England is a whole other story. But what is it exactly? What's the Swedish approach? how they've been handling it?
Well, from the beginning, I think the idea was that closing down the whole society would be so harmful for so many other ways for the people in the society that you should minimize that. You should really think where you close, and you should leave the rest open. So children should go to school if it's possible, because the virus doesn't seem to be as bad for children, and so on. And in that way, I think it's fantastic. It's very good. But then, after a pretty short while, the elder care, it showed that it doesn't function at all. You can't close it, and many workers in there are hired per hour. So they go from one elder care center to other. They might have 5 different per day. And of course, if there is somebody who has the virus, then it's everywhere in one day. And they were not given masks or visir or whatever. So that's I think the starting point for the terrible death figures you have here. And the strange thing is that it's still not much better. It is better, but it's still not totally addressed to. The system hasn't changed as much as I think it should have changed. And I'm wondering, this is very private thought, but this country hasn't been in war for over 200 years. And it's the only country in the world. And it's also the only, Switzerland too. Switzerland is number 2. But Sweden is a winner.
Yeah, he's the winner. Okay.
And I wonder if that might have a reason for the slowness of action somehow, that you expect that, but it cannot be too bad. I mean, there's nothing bad happening to us ever. So that you really have to decide day one that we do this now and we keep doing it. It's really not for this country. Also, the structure of deciding things here is very democratic. And of course, this is fantastic. But sometimes when you have to be fast, you don't have time to listen to everybody's opinions. And that's very un-Swedish, to listen to everybody's opinion. So
that's interesting. That's an interesting
observation. It's like a mixture of cultural history somehow, and also not really being able to be quick enough. And when I talk, of course, with my family in Helsinki and friends, and in the beginning, I thought it was unbelievable. How can the Swedish state betray their citizens this way? But I hope it's not quite that simple. I mean, I think that the idea they had from the beginning is a fantastic one, because now we start to see in other countries when people are unemployed, they are not able to do things they are supposed to do, and the suffering that is causing is, of course, a huge thing. So
and a lot of depression and the whole thing.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you said that, because I think in music, it also reflects a certain, maybe overpowering way of deciding by committee. There's certain things in life, especially the crisis situation or creative decisions. Because I talked to, on this program, the first guest was my dear friend, Tony Papano, who you worked with him in Brussels. Yeah. And we were talking about, I said to him, listen, at the end of the day, one person writes the piece of music. And one person has to decide how it's going to be performed. You cannot have, I could have so many wonderful opinions, especially from, great, friends of mine and AS members. But if I have to ask everyone, what tempo should we have, what articulation, how we should interpret it, we'll never get anything done. it has to be one person who takes responsibility. And if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong, but I take that responsibility. I think it's a lot harder to do in Scandinavian or orchestras, for instance, in Scandinavia, because they have to have, everybody has to have a say, which is in principle a wonderful democratic principle. But there are situations in life or in the arts where it simply doesn't doesn't work. You play in string trio, you play string trio, so you have three. Imagine quartet, which is so famous for having so many different, opinions. But somebody has to take responsibility. We're going to play it in this tempo, we're going to play it in this character, and so forth. The same thing with the pandemic. We got to do it this way, chief, whatever it is, medical person. It's interesting that there's two countries. I haven't thought of it when I thought it would be a great combination of you two, but you do live in two countries that haven't had a war for a long time. And what about Switzerland, Yoko? Could you compare
Oh, that's
what's going on?
I got this slowness and the federalism and the democracy is over democracy and over federalism. And that's exactly also here. Everybody has something to say, and also we can vote for each tiny thing. You have no idea. There's somebody who is a specialist should decide, but they give us chance to vote for that. I mean, this is insane. Yeah, I think it was a good idea. This also Switzerland, the school has been open for the small children also, for the university level now, because small children who has to learn now ABC, how to write and pronounce, they have to do at home. No way, so school has I mean, but it's hard to accept. But this is a collective generation program.
It's a mentality. It's a mentality of people. Majority people never had to endure a war like you had in Japan or like you guys had in Finland not so long ago. And
nature, catastrophe like an earthquake. War.
Earthquakes, exactly, and that sort of brings people together as one. And you have to, if you go through disasters, I mean, you do feel like we're all in it together. Like, hopefully the world will feel that way now. Just to change the subject to something that we talked about before, I can see that Eric Rame, who you both know, because he's come to some of our tours, an old friend from Juliet, he said Sally Thomas is still alive and is just about Galamins in the apartment on the 12th floor. Eric once had a dinner party and invited Sally and her partner to have dinner with us. So I after so many decades, Sally Thomas, of course, was one of Galamin's main assistants, and she was in Meadowmount all the time and everything. So she still lives in the same building. Thank you, Eric. That's a good point. So yeah, we realized that actually, and there is something. It's interesting because that's a common thing between those countries, Sweden and Switzerland, where you live. But there is also something that I always felt in the mentality and possibly the way the Finns listen to music and also the Japanese music. These are the two countries where the words don't necessarily mean that much as, let's say, in Sweden or in other much more verbal cultures, and or Chinese cultures, but they feel the music in a very, very deep way. And I've experienced that, of course, 10 years of festival and then having all the NES tours and all that. And so it's something that you seem so far apart, but in fact, the philosophy and the attitude towards music is not that far. and in terms of. Now, let me, something lighter. Is somebody asking, NES had some fabulous soloists performing with us. Kisin, Argerich, Davidovich, Harold, Merck, Repin, Bashmet, Hendricks, and so forth, including Bobby McFerrin, Evelyn Glenn, and so forth. Who you wished you had met, but never did, and why? So, Kati, you go, and then Yoko after that.
I was really thinking about this, and I don't know. I couldn't come up with a. I mean, it's enough for me nowadays just to listen to the people. I don't have to get to know them if I like their music.
Yeah, I understand. But you wish we had a concert.
Yeah, there's one historical person that actually I would like to. I get more and more curious about what was going on, and that's Johann Sebastian Bach. So there is this like a dream that imagine just to have been able to play with him, to play his stuff, just to sit next to him occasionally, maybe not all the time. Of course, I would have to be a man then, because at that time I suppose women were not doing much, or were doing other kind of things.
Exactly.
But that's really something I'm thinking of. How is it possible? How did he function? How is it? I mean, yeah, I suppose it's the same for us all.
Yeah. You know, I once spent almost a week teaching a masterclass at the Bach Academy, which was connected with a competition which was coming a few months later in Leipzig. And it was actually in his house. So I went every morning for a number of hours to teach in Bach's house opposite Thomaskirche. So that was the place. I felt that he was just going to open the door maybe and check it out. And some players were, playing Baroque violins, or some played normal violins, but Baroque bows and this and that. And I was just going to Thomaskirche like he used to, just crossing that little square and so forth. It's interesting. There's some extraordinary connections. I'm now fascinated by his contemporary, and I'm preparing something on my own because it's all solo violin for the moment. I might transcribe it later on, but Telemann, this is a composer not many people know about. But for instance, Telemann was offered this position in Thomaskirche. He turned it down. He was the first choice. Then, because he had a better offer in Hamburg, and that's where he stayed for many years. Second choice was also not Bach. Bach was third choice for that position. Imagine. Yeah, and how the history changed. And it's interesting because Telemann wrote his Fantasias, this is what I'm working on just on my own. Now, in 1735, he wrote. Bach already written all these sonatas and partitas and everything, but they were not known. Bach was not famous in his lifetime. His own children didn't know what an extraordinary giant, alpha and omega of music, was among them. They just thought, well, they are this sort of like, retrograde. He's writing something, all this polyphony that's already, that's not in fashion. And one of his sons actually succeeded. I think he was also, Telemann was the godfather of Carl Philipp Emanuel, and he succeeded him in his position, I think in Hamburg. So there was an exchange. They knew each other. And Telemann also knew Handel. Bach never met Handel. Bach was always looking up to Handel, thinking, oh, what a wonderful composer, and successful, and all his books would come out and everything. I mean, it's fascinating. Yoko, what about you? Who did we miss? Who we or you missed that you wish we?
I missed anything.
I
don't think
you missed
anything. I think I got more than I deserve.
Yeah. No, we had some. I'll tell you what I missed. I not that we ever had a chance, but I wish we had a chance to, from the ones that would be within realm of possibility. Radu Lupu is a very special artist, and he plays with orchestra sometimes. Now he stopped playing altogether, but I mean, I knew Radu sort of socially, and I was his admirer for many years. He spoke Russian absolutely fluently because he studied in Ohio. He was very special, and I think we would have just adored him because there was the quality of his playing. From the violinist, I don't know. I think we never worked with Zuckerman. I worked with him later on, and Pinky would have been, on a good day, he would have been something special, and also the connection with Galamin. But I mean, we did cover the field pretty well, pretty well. We've had a lot of.
That's actually interesting also, because I started to talk about the fact that when I was young and started, then I didn't, the way of playing somehow was very, you have to do this and then you have it somehow. And then I came to the orchestra. Yeah. And I was sitting next to, or we were three in the beginning, but anyway, Sergei Sudzilovsky was there, and his bow hand was something it was just like, what's going on? Nobody told me you can do like that. And the sound he got out of the instrument was like 8 times more than anybody else. It was just amazing. And then also, I mean, Misha Sekler, and with his unbelievable vibrato. I mean, I couldn't. You can hear that on the old recording, but to really to be there and to see him doing this, and the devotion he had for the music and for the orchestra and everything is amazing, really. Or Edward Idelchuk with his love of detail and the phrasing and the breathing of everything. Or Mick Sterling, who I mean, the way he played the solo in the Dohnani, I mean, every note was gold. It was so beautiful. And all these people, or Rustem Gabdulin, how he could make the line, whatever we were playing, he was always alone in the beginning. And he just carried us with the way he was playing the bass line. And they all these people, all of us, we were totally different. Everything was different, and it was because of that partially so fantastic. And for me to really so close by see that and be absorbed in it, it was fantastic. That there is a way of doing things which is your way of doing things, and that's a good way. You don't have to try to be exactly like your teacher or like some, it was really an eye and ear opener mostly. Fantastic. Then of course there were all these great, the fantastic soloists and all the I was so young. I was mostly interested about what's going on around me. I thought already when there is a soloist, it's like, is this too far?
It's too far. It was fascinating enough who was playing next to you.
Exactly. I was learning much more there behind everybody.
But also, I think it was also very special that we had all the time, at least the principals at that time, but also many others, that we had chamber music, or
yes.
we had the chance to play with Marta Argerich and with Bella, with all these guys that I mentioned. I mean, we Lynn Harrell, in Seattle, also was unbelievable, and yes. Truls York, what a special artist he is, and and Vadim Cummings still. 18, 19 or something, with playing Bach triple in Prague. I don't know whether you remember that famous Boris's favorite story with the Bach triple concerto and all that. I think we have something really special to say. to
I remember.
Yes, you remember that now. Yeah, I have actually a picture of us from that rehearsal. Vadim looks like this. Yeah, but actually, now he looks like this. At that time, he was more hefty, and we were just, yeah, and so many wonderful stories also. Yeah. Now, on a more serious note, what do you think? What's your view? How different you think our music world will be after the pandemic, which seems to really have shaken it to the core, and especially with young people, that's been quite devastating. What what will be different? The way, just your take, your personal take. It doesn't have to be, you know, a prediction. It's not a sport prediction. You don't have to get any points for that. What do you think could be a positive thing, and what we'll have to just learn and get used to it? Yoko, you start.
Yeah, I think it will be so wonderful for the audience to be pleasant with as an audience, and have a live concert. This is something, you can't have it through the microphone. And then also, I think individual, these uniform things, way of music making, just to go with, yeah, I think individualism is asked for it. And then I think this is people will choose for their own taste. They will not just take anything. I think it's good. Everybody was so starving now on diet to go, and now when something comes, you want to have your own taste. You want to pick. I hope
Yeah,
overfilling is no good. That's
yeah.
too much junk food around. It was, I think.
That is true. I mean, but that now we've got another extreme. Now we have almost nothing is available, and whatever is available is on internet these days. But when you finally get to the real life music making, we certainly do feel how special what we've been doing. That we should anymore ever in our lives. Anyway, my generation, what we're doing for granted. Oh yeah, well that's another performance. No, it's a performance. So lucky we're in the same room together, and we can exchange that invisible, energy and fluids of music, of energy exchange, thoughts, emotions, feelings. We could really share our pain, our sorrow, our joys, and all these things become a very special. Like, in a way, every time NAS got together, that's how we felt. It was a time of elation, as something that, oh, we're together. We're making music together, and we can spend the whole time together, whether we eating, whether we talking, walking, carrying on, telling jokes, but we are exchanging our energy. And I think that's part of this is what's been cut. I mean, we're doing our best by doing all these things online, and we're staying alive. And many of us really value this as the next best thing we can do to stay together. It's certainly much better than if everybody's just separated and, no. But I hope also audience, what you were saying, will appreciate that a concert is not something you could go to a concert or maybe watch a movie or maybe watch television, maybe play cards, maybe, I don't know, do something. No, going to a concert becomes an event because I will get something that I will never get anywhere else because it'll be a live exchange of emotions. I think if that's what will be the lesson of this. And because it'll be much rarer, now it's 25% or 50% at the most in some countries. Some of it, no public at all. It's just streaming, which is not quite the same thing. Because I believe that we need to have three elements in the concert. In the live performance has to be great piece of music, great performers, and the audience. Those are three-legged stool. Without the audience, it's not quite the performance. We can do our best, but there's no feedback. There's no energy that being exchanged. So I think if that happens, what about you, Kati? What do you think we should take home, and what are the hopes, and how do you think it's gonna come in? How different? Also, because you are actively in the opera house, in the orchestra, plus everything else that you do.
I think on a plus side, this internet activity, everything will continue, and I hope it will develop also, that you will have more things that are created for this, are created for that they become things that you cannot do live, that you somehow have operas or performances or whatever on the net, but specifically for the net. But then again, I'm a bit worried for the institutions who, of course, now need money, that they would think that, okay, the way of getting back everybody is to just play Beethoven, Mahler, and Mozart, maybe a little bit of Haydn, so that you somehow keep doing the other things also, that the modern composers, the now living composers, and the newly dead composers, and that you don't lose the contact of what's going on now, just because finances maybe it feels too risky or whatever. I mean, I think it would be such a great opportunity for us to actually become more of an element in our time, to play more of what is going on now, to show people what there is. Because also, if we don't do the work, if we don't find the great pieces which are not played, then nobody will. The public is not coming, the audience is not coming with the unplayed pieces and asking us to do them. We have to take care of the inheritage, not only with these big guys, but also with a lot of other stuff, which is very interesting. Like you're doing with the Telemann. I mean, Telemann is of course known, but people who are alive now, and also the composers, geez, they need also to be played for public, for audience.
And they need us, because ultimately we really exist primarily and originally. That's how performers as a class was created, is to play new music. You know, Razumovsky hired a string quartet, and they were all on his payroll, to have a quartet in residence to play all new Beethoven quartets, not just those three. Razumovsky, he had that quartet on salary, ready anytime Beethoven would write something new. You know, that's it. And Beethoven quartet, much 150 years later, called Beethoven quartet, Russian quartet, were the ones who played every Shostakovich quartet. Apart from other things that they did, but that's what they will be known. Believe me, they will not be known for playing Beethoven quartets, because there were other quartets maybe better even than them, but they will go down in history because every Shostakovich new quartet, they played it first in his apartment for the last 20 years that he lived in that. I've been there. I mean, his widow, I'm quite friendly, and she's very nice to invite me and even some of the guests that I brought. Everything was played in that piano room, you know, the first performance. So they were there, even not that far removed from my generation, because I knew them. Tsiganov and Shirinsky and then Druzhinin, who became the and of course all of them. That was their function, is to play whatever new quartets to come in. And I think we forget that because we all think that, somehow we're so sure, some of us, that the way we play Tchaikovsky concerto or Brahms concerto, it's never been played before. Yeah, if you go on stage, you have to think that way. Otherwise, stay home and don't play it. But, probably a few giants before us who walked on stage and who performed and whose recordings we have, they probably had a few good things to say about those pieces. So don't flatter yourself. But you could do something incredibly useful. And I think, coming back to our virtual experience, it's very interesting. We're now about to finish the new cycle of Bach dance suite. The first dance suite in mostly in G and C that have made now seven one is coming, and it's going to be the second suite of 7. But believe it or not, the Desatnikov Bukovina suite been seen and heard by much more people than the Bach. As much as we love and we do our absolute best, so there is a public for that.
Of course.
Just on my Facebook page, there are more that combined for 7 pieces, and they're 2 to 3 minute long, really. 3.5, I think, is the longest. But anyway, there were more than 200,000 views of Desatnikov.
Yeah.
And this is not a household name.
No.
Outside of Russia, some people know him, but mostly it's so. But it struck, a certain chord, and we have now the whole army of Ukrainian and Romanian fans who feel that this is their music. Bukovinas is where they live. This is part of their country. So that's great, and that's how it should be, because if they feel sense of belonging, wonderful. So I think maybe the internet and the possibility of no borders and no danger before you come to a live concert, maybe you knew, and the chances are better maybe through internet, and then to bring it to the concert hall. But your fears are absolutely correct, because normally a knee-jerk reaction, when you let's just do Beethoven Fifth or Tchaikovsky Fifth or something like that, the famous pieces. Of course, public should be lucky just to get to the hall and hear something live, because I had goosebumps when I was in Prague, and it'd been at that point just about 6 months I hadn't heard orchestra live. Whatever that Prague radio orchestra played was just like goosebumps. Just the sound, of those woodwinds, and then the brass and the strings, and in that beautiful. I mean, as a listener, I thought, just died and went to heaven. It's incredible how much we forget how what it means, really, even just viscerally, just physically. Listen, so there's still lots of questions, but I think we should probably, so Mimi Sunastam, of course, is sending her love. And so this is the day to celebrate friendship, love of friends. And I certainly celebrate you too, and in your, ambassadorial, role, my beloved NAS members who've been absolutely the source of joy and sustained me in my seemingly undying optimism or enthusiasm, but you're part of it, because if I didn't have that connection, and if I didn't feel needed, that you're actually waiting for my new transcriptions and for the next piece to record together, and then I get a phone call from Boris and said, let's have a session where I play, you watched, you play, I watch, let's coordinate the boyings, and let's send this, and then comes from Boris this, and from me this. It's fantastic. It seems like we've never been closer, even though we all live in our houses. But the distance is also, it's a relative thing. As long as we have the distance, closeness of the hearts, of our minds, and of music, I think we will be okay. So thanks a lot. Really, lots of love, and we'll get together before too long when this whole thing goes away. In the meantime, we'll continue to stay together and make music distantly as long as we can breathe. Lots of love. And
Thank
thanks so
you,
much.
Timo. Thank you. Bye.
Great.